Makes me want to adjust my screen. So that makes me wonder if Bill had a freeze or the show is not broadcasting. No, it's live apparently. So what if we'd had you turn your mic on, Bill? We have an interesting beginning to our show. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties. And we're having a not such a smart beginning to our day. So I'll step over here to me. And we had Bill ready to do the presentation. And for whatever reason, we had a freeze of his visual. So it could have been from the weather in Belize or his connection to the internet. We have Bill's icon back, so maybe we'll review that intro again later on. But the main thing to know is that you are here on the Marketing Smarties show. Hi, Bill.
Hi. My internet decided to take a break just as you hit the start button.
Isn't that fascinating? Hey, should we have a replay?
Why not?
I mean, you know, I hate to waste your work, and I'm happy to do it. So let's screen share again, Bill. I'll white box you, and we'll have a retake of our beginning. And I won't bother going back and editing this beginning out and trimming the video or anything. But we'll try this again. Let's see.
Take two.
I kind of look basically like an Etch-a-Sketch character, and I'm real happy with that beginning and what we do with that to give everyone a brief idea of what the show is all about. So welcome, everybody. Good day to you, whether it's morning, noon, or night, or possibly in the middle of your night. Thank you for watching, or thank you for watching the replay, and I'm happy if you watch the replay. And by the way, even if you do watch the replay, or even if you show up before the event and nobody's here yet, you can comment in the comment stream, and it is evergreen. So I read these comments before the show, and I'm hoping that people will ask questions and give me the ping and prompt before the show, and we might very well talk about the subjects or the comments that you make before the show. And after the show, we can carry on with comments afterwards too. And that's one of the things I love about the VCP plugin. This show is sponsored by MinMax Media on the DIYLivestreamingshow.com website. And we focus on the internet marketing tripod and the minimum you need for maximum impact. And watching this show is all about explaining what those words mean. So we did a show last week, and we talked about microphones. Now, am I the know-it-all microphone man? By no means. By no means. But I do have a lot of practical experience with it, and I do like to share what I know. And I think that what we have to offer, especially with the rest of us here too, who all have knowledge in this area, to actually solve people's problems or suggest good solutions or alternatives to get better effect and better end results from what they're trying to record or what they're trying to produce or their live streaming or whatnot. Because the bottom line is almost any mic will do in a pinch. But the line just above that, the minimum you need for maximum impact, is that for very little you could make the improvements that put you into the pocket of acceptable minimum quality. So that's more what we're dealing with here. We're not talking about what you're going to do when you're a millionaire and what kind of a microphone you would make at that point in time, because your options have changed, right? But a lot of what we have are beginners. A lot of what we have are entrepreneurs, people with little to no budget, and they are willing to invest time and effort into something, and they have a lot to say. They've got a message that they want to get out there, but they're thinking to themselves, I don't have enough. I need to be a little better. I need a better mic. I need a better camera. I need. Every single one of those I needs is more of an excuse than a fact. So we'll talk about the minimum you need. And initially is whatever the minimum is that keeps you from saying no and keeps you from saying I quit or I won't get started. Because all in all, the bottom line is you have to get started. You have to show up. And that's really what this show is all about, encouraging people to engage in what they want to engage in. And less than that, I hope you enjoy the show and the fun conversations that we have. So I indeed am not by myself here in the green room or on this show. On a regular basis, we have several people who contribute to the wealth of knowledge that we present to everyone. And I would like to start with introducing my co-host, Bill Graham, who does more than just a co-host job. He really manages the external communication and conversation that goes on with everybody in the audience outside the green room. So he's kind of like the connective doorway for the conversation to be extended as it is. Bill Graham, come on board and tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Say hi.
Good morning, everyone from Belize, or happy Saturday. My name is Bill Graham. In Belize, my prime focus is my website at BillDoesBelize.com, where I share unbiased information, or what I refer to as the unbelievable truth, to help folks that might be considering making a move to a developing nation to make an informed decision. And that's basically what I do.
Cool. And beyond that, the reason that Bill is so important to this show is, number one, he's very good with the mechanics of what's going on. And he uses the Google tools from the Google apps very well and integrates them. And it really is a good demonstration of what you can produce for very little investment of time, learning, and using free tools. And that's one of the things that we love Google for, is the fact that they've presented us with a lot of facilities to do a lot of things, even on a professional or semi-professional level, that gets us started into things like live streaming to the world on the internet with a global presentation. And that's a big mouthful to say Hangouts on Air can reach the world. So anyway, that's Bill. Now, along with us, we have several people who have been joining us in the green room for about 3 months and more. And we've been working together, some of us, for going on a couple of years. And I really appreciate their opinions. And also, 2 of them are participating in my VCP plugin testing. And the beta testing is about over, and we have the concept wrapped up pretty well. We're actually on the edge of producing a commercial version that we're going to release to the public. And it's pretty good. We're having a lot of fun with it. And thank you, Lowland. And the main thing that happens is we're able to produce events like the one happening in the DIYLivestreamingshow.com website, and allowing people to comment there, communicate there, and we can actually present their comments live. So we'll be doing that later on and show you how that happens. But right now, I want to start by introducing Andrew Hatchett, who has his own community. We call him Andy. And Andy, why don't you come on board and tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your community, please?
Thanks, Roland. I'm Andy Hatchett, Hermitage, Tennessee. As Roland says, I've got an online community. I do 2 live shows a day to help people learn how to use the tools necessary to do a good hangout on air. And that's basically what the whole community is about.
Well, and I love it because that's the focus about what you do, and that's the focus about what I do. Using Hangouts on Air is a really good free facility, sponsored by Google through YouTube, and it's there may be nothing better. I mean, even if there is a expensive plan somewhere with all the bells and whistles and a good ticket card to get into the door to use that stuff, it's not necessarily going to be more impactful than what we're doing right here and right now, virtually for free. Now, is it free? No, there's a lot of peripherals and things that we have to do, but we help people. And that phrase, help people, is the key to Andrew Hatchett and what you present. You're constantly helping other people. And you don't do it for money. You're retired, I know, but you're investing a lot of time and effort just to help people. And to me, that's a beautiful thing. So in the same way, the Smarties Show on Saturdays is also for free. I don't sponsor. I don't have affiliates. Nobody pays me to be here, unfortunately. But I mean, the idea is I do this because I love conveying what I feel is the truth about the internet and live streaming and about the Internet Marketing Tripod. So if I can help people in that respect, that's worth more to me than anything else, and that's why I do it. So that's why I appreciate you so much, Andy.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you for being with us. Now, also in the green room, we have Lowell Ann Fulsang, who's been around the Hangout block with us for a long time and been doing a lot of experiments, and she's been assisting in the longevity of the concept of Hangouts and the events for a long time. So I appreciate her being here. She's got a group called the Being Your Own CEO Success Circle, and she runs every Tuesday. Lowell Ann, come on board and tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, good morning. And yes, I'm also one of the people using the VCP plugin and loving it. So part of our experimentation is what are the benefits of hosting our websites or our video hangouts from our websites, and so that's an important thing. So by Being Your Own CEO Success Circle, I actually presented that to some people locally here this weekend, and they were quite amazed to see that I actually had 10 people in the film strip, and that we were having conversations, and that people were from all over the globe. And they were just gobsmacked about it. So we've still got lots of work to do out there. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. We're happy to have you, and we're really happy that you're out gobsmacking people, because I feel that the impact wave of the gobsmacking going on is that people around the world are going to get more attuned to this concept of live streaming. Means that I can do this from my house, and I'll have a voice that starts with 1 or 2 people and then could expand out to a global influence. I mean, that's a vision that when people finally get that connection and they realize that, they're going to go, oh my God, what am I doing? I got to change everything that I'm doing. I have to realign my outreach and redesign what I'm doing. And gee, it's going to be as easy as 1, 2, 3. And then, of course, the 80% of the people out there are going to jump on board to sell them their foolproof package. And so please look out for that, because a lot of times all the foolproof packages are meant to be is a money grabber to put money into the person's pocket that is selling you the thing in the first place. So enough for my rant on that. We have to get around to Tim Longwell, because Tim Longwell is one of the more recent additions to the Green Room, but he's also experimenting with the VCP plugin, and he's about to launch his own show. And we tried to launch it a few days ago, but he had some technical difficulties that are beyond my comprehension. And as simple as it is, it sounded like more of a tool problem than an internet problem. But anyway, we're going to bring him on and ask him to say a little bit about himself and to tell what you're starting with your VCP plugin events, and give everybody a brief view of that, because we want to support you in every way we can. Come on board, Tim.
Thank you, Roland. My name is Tim Longwell. I do my art under the logo of Longwell Art, and the website is listed under my picture there that as you're watching. The concept was that I had kind of a help the artist type program in the past, but I wanted to do more along that helping line. And I said, well, one of the things I know best, that I've done the longest out of everything, was I've created art. From a very early age, at age 6 with a wood burner, up till now, I've done just about every type of device to create art with. Finger painting, oil painting like I do now, pencils, and so on. And research has shown that something that I discovered a long time ago is that art and creativity of any kind, whether it be music or painting or drawing or any type of art expression and creativity expression, is the same as meditation. It triggers the same things in the brain. It has the same benefits. So what this new program called Painting for Pleasure will do is show concepts to help people enter the creative sphere, even if all they can afford is a bundle of notebook paper and a pencil, so that they can benefit from being creative. Because everybody says I'm not an artist, but they never realize just how creative they can be, whether they're using a pencil or, oddly enough, maybe some custom designs doing something like crochet or cross stitch. And I'm going to encourage that. And these programs will be on the website with the VCP program. Sometimes I may record them and put them up without a chance for the audience to be there, but the VCP will allow them to comment. I will receive notifications in a couple of different places that way instead of just one. I can answer their questions through the VCP plugin, and I can address them in a future video, either live broadcast or pre-recording, so that art and creativity can help other people too.
That is really beautiful. Now, let me tell you a brief personal story. But before I do that, we have something coming in from Bill. He's got a comment from out there.
Yeah, I thought everybody's made their introductions. We should acknowledge the people that have joined us today. And it kind of goes to what Tim was saying about being able to comment before, during, and after these events, and having the comments remain evergreen, as we say. And it started with you posing a question when you put up the event, asking people what microphones they used. And prior to the event, Ross Betts joined the comment stream. She wasn't able to join the show today, but she says, I know I use them. And your question was, what microphones are people using? And her response was, she didn't know at the time, because she says, I know I use a microphone that has Pro in it, but as I've already packed it in a big box ready to move the contents to my home of 7 years to a new home, I can't look to find it yet. Looking forward to catching up on the recordings. when I can get the net connected. So we wish Ross good luck with making her move and getting back on the internet. Lon McClure has joined us again and says hello to everyone. And of course, as usual, Michael Thomas has joined us, and he's made a little comment. I just finished a do-all, my social campaign on mobile, and let me tell you, SSM and Smarties, that it was exhausting yet a revealing process. I'm extremely glad it's over. 10 days to be exact, by the way. So
Wow.
It's encouraging to hear the people that are joining us are getting started and doing things out there.
Absolutely. And the concept of participating before, during, and after the show is very important to me, and one of the reasons that I developed the plugin. The only place that we had that evergreen effect was in the event pages that Google Plus, they took them away, then brought them back, and they're okay, and they work pretty well for some things, but I'm never going to rely on them exclusively again. And of course, being Google, we don't know how much longer it'll be around. And I set my lighting in here for a kind of a dull, overcast day, and now the sun is just trying to peek in through the clouds, and so I'm getting a shine on me. So you're just going to have to put up with my camera. By the way, Tim was talking about how his project, his concept, and his outreach is spawning creativity. And I wanted to tell you a little story about my own creativity. And yes, I am an artist. I just never have expressed myself as much in that way. When I was married years and years ago to another lady, and long since divorced after 3 years of marriage. Back when I got married when I was 21, so it's 2/3 of my life ago. Okay, and at that time we got together, and a year or so into the marriage, sitting around the Christmas environment, and my wife at the time says, "Let's draw each other. Let me draw you," and I said, "Yeah, well, let me draw you too. We'll draw each other." So that's cool. That's pretty cool. We pulled out pencils. And we traded off, where I meticulously looked at her profile and drew it. And then she meticulously looked at my profile and drew it. And then we compared notes later on. Now, my wife she was a very creative person, done a lot of art for a lot of days, painting, drawing, and, multimedia, all kinds of stuff. And back then, 40-something years ago, multimedia meant a totally different thing than it does now. But anyway, so we compare these pictures, and I look at this and like, my God, dimensionally and in the etch, I had very little detail. I didn't have shading. I didn't have a lot of the things that an artist would have the eye for. But I had her drawn in pencil sketch pretty damn perfect. It really looked like her, right? And then I looked at the picture that she drew of me. It's like, my God, this is an alien. It doesn't even look like me. And it's like, what are you using your artistic license to draw what you think I should look like, or what? But anyway, my point is, I actually had a better eye regarding certain things in perspective and being able to reproduce what I saw. And I thought, wow, what if I got into art? And I had a background in architecture. So I had the idea of drawing the lines at the right angles and the dimensions and stuff. I had that down pretty well, but I didn't have a lot of the techniques of what you do with something to create reality or expression. And so I know that I could have been more of an artist if I wanted to. I ended up being a math major until my second year of college, where I completely quit that major and went to recreation and basically sports and recreation. Completely changed my major, and that's another story. But anyway, I'm talking about creativity as an artist, and the concept that you support, Tim, is people reaching inside themselves and peeking out with their expression opportunity. Because everybody's got an expression opportunity. And the creativity is what is brought out, what is emphasized when people start to express. So when it comes to everything that we're doing on the internet, that's one of the key words for me is you've got to express yourself, whether it's verbally, whether it's artistically, whether it's training people, leading people, commenting on other people, divulging some bit of knowledge that you have, whatever it is that you know, whatever it is that you do, bring that to the internet and show people and give them value, teach them something. And that's the tool that live streaming presents that blogs fall short on, podcasts fall short on, and written material, magazines, newspapers, recordings, all these things fall a little bit short of the opportunity given and provided by live streaming. The one thing that live streaming adds is that now we can include the people in the active live audience in the midst of our broadcast. And that's as connected as we can get live. And that's why I love it so much. So now that we've covered all those things, if anyone has anything to comment or say, I invite your comments at any point in time. But it's time for a few things from Roland's rants. And I really don't have a lot of rants to present today, but I had a few things to acknowledge. First of all, last week we talked about Rand Fishkin and his company that he has a website for called Moz or Moz.com. And I asked a question which nobody answered. Nobody even responded to. So maybe I'm the only one that cares. But Moz.com. How do you pronounce that? Does anybody have a very strong opinion about how to pronounce that name? And did anybody care to check? I mean, I'm kind of curious to know if anyone actually went to his website and did any kind of little bit of research to understand why he calls it what he does and what the pronunciation is supposed to be. And there's a very, very clear clue. And you're just going to laugh when you hear it. I guess we're ready to talk about it. And by the way, we lost Andrew, and so he may not be back today, but we're glad that he was here for the time that he was. Go ahead, Bill.
I was going to say, I think these pronunciation things are a little bit based on perspective. I mean, I tend to mosey around the internet, so maybe it's Mosey.
Maybe. Anyone else want to? Maybe, Bill. Oh, well. I didn't know he had a comedy show. Anyway, if anyone else has something to contribute, even from the field, there might be a couple of people watching. But I'm about to tell you the big secret that I think the reason that I have it right. Okay? Okay, you ready for this? Rand Fishkin on his website has a slogan or a tagline. And that tagline is The Wizard of Moz. Now, how can we miss that, right? Right? That's pretty darn clear. But I mean, I was looking around trying to figure out, you go to Google and say M-O-Z pronunciation, and that's one of the times I tried that. And it's like nothing came up. Nothing came up. Nothing said, here's how you pronounce Moz, because apparently Google doesn't feel it's a word worth mentioning. But in the marketing world, Rand Fishkin and Moz is very, very predominant. And so I thought, well, millions of people using this term every day, we all should know how to pronounce it. So it's Wizard of Moz. And I don't think he did that incidentally or I think that he really meant to use that. I think it's great. He tagged something that is as old as, six decades old or something like that. And it's so common. The concept of Wizard of Oz is embedded in everybody for generations after generation. And so the Wizard of Moz, I think, is a brilliant, brilliant concept. So I just wanted to throw that into the mix for a laugh. And now moving on to another internet marketer, or a person on the internet, I'm not sure whether you would call him a marketer or not, but he keys in on more of my own field of expression, and that's Brian Kramer. Brian Kramer instituted this concept of H2H. In other words, we all talk about B2B, business to business, or B2C, business to company or corporation, or like so. And, that's all good and well. Who you selling to, who you connect with. But Brian says in marketing communications, it gets more basic than that. It's H2H, or human to human. And it basically means, in my translation of what he expresses, even if you're selling business to business or business to company, even if you're doing that, you're still a human being talking to a human being, and that's where the sale is made. People don't buy from a website. People don't buy from a company. They buy from a person. And so often, the product might be the same elsewhere, or the product might be what it is and exclusive. But the concept is, the reason that the people buy is that they talked to somebody, developed a relationship, developed the trust, developed the knowledge and understanding about the product, and then because of a person and a connection and a relationship, then the sale was made and the conversion was complete. And so to human is the basics, the basic connection for all sales. That's what he's saying. And then he emphasizes, well, that connection is more important than the sale, because if you don't have that connection, there will be no sale. So he doesn't deal so much on like how to sell a product, how to do this, how to get more ROI. He deals with the connection of humans to humans. And that's more along the lines of what we do here. Lowell Ann brought up the thing in her presentation of the other day, the concept of relationship marketing. And over 2 years ago, I used the term that I had heard somewhere else, but I just really grabbed onto it, and that is engagement marketing. All of this is engagement marketing, and then people will define engagement different ways. But to me, engagement very much is this human-to-human element, and very much the relationship element. Not just the fact that you shook a hand, but what did you do in the relationship with the person that you shook hands with? Did you call them back? Did you ask them any questions? Did you get to know who they are? And understanding that and talking to that person builds a relationship that leads to other things. And so that's why, to me, that's engagement. Engagement is not how many likes you have, how many views your video got. The engagement to me is who said what in your comments, and whether they ask you questions or whether they agree with you or disagree. That's part of the engagement factor that means something to me. So,
Roland, I would add a couple of things though.
Yeah.
I mean, what we're trying to put forward here is what anything that creates a conversation. But when we think about this kind of thing and what we're doing, I mean, some of the principles around just maintaining a good friendship apply. I mean, if we have a good friend somewhere, we have to connect with that person on a regular basis. Otherwise, it dies. And we need to be loyal to that person and what they're trying to do, and we need to provide support. So to me, that word engagement has a very, very broad meaning.
Absolutely.
And that's why I use I broke it down even simpler for me. But foremost, it's not just human to human, because that's still a large group, like as engagement marketing is. I broke it down to simple P2P, person to person, because no matter what you're doing, people are going to deal with you or not deal with you, because people do business, take training, whatever, from people they know and people they like. So they have to know you and they have to like you, or you're not going to get the engagement for the engagement marketing.
Agreed. And Tim, I think that we're all pretty much in agreement with you, and it's all basically part of the same language, because when you start thinking about it, you know, the objective of people on the internet is always to cut to the chase and magnify and leverage, and how do you scale and do these things. And my question has always been, are you worth scaling? Yeah, are you worth sharing? Are you worth following? It's like, okay, well, if you want to leverage something up, you got to have something to leverage in the first place. And that leverage is based on how you treat that one individual. And what your reputation will be is how much integrity you take the one relationship and expand it into 2 and 3, and be consistent about what you're delivering to the people, so they all can agree on something that is definitely not just your brand, but who you really are. And that's the authenticity that we talk about, and that's the being real that we talk about, and the various things that we call, these are marketing essentials, but it's actually talking about essentially being a human being, being a person, being an individual. And so regardless of the terms that we talk about or what we apply to it, it all boils down to the one-on-one relationship and engagement with one person. It all starts there. And if you're not willing to do that, the rest of it's pretty hard to leverage.
Yeah, and also with engagement too, I think it goes back to that old thing of giving without expecting anything in return. I always use the expression, we have one mouth and 2 ears. So when you meet somebody, you should maybe listen, speak. And a lot of times people want to take that opportunity to tell the other person all about themselves, but they walk away with no impression of the other person. So that to me is not engagement. Engagement is listening rather than telling, I think.
Exactly. And something to reinforce this, something that I learned from traditional marketing, when you have a marketing group or a group of people, if you stand in a group of people and you might meet people and ask them questions about them, they're going to remember you better than if you got your 30-second speech drilled out and then went through and got to talk for another 10 minutes and drilled all the points and the fine points and the details of what you do, and you walked away. The people will still remember you more because you asked them questions about them than what you told them about you. Or that, at least that's what I believe. And so,
yeah, and think about it this way. We all have that friend that every time you go to tell them something, cut you off and say, "Oh, I know what you mean," and they interject right into their own story. You know, so think about when you're dealing with your friends. Would you rather talk to that friend, or would you rather talk to the friend that listens to your story?
Really good point. And that whole thing about yeah, I know what you mean, or the exact same thing happened to me, and then I'm thinking, no, it didn't.
And how could you know? You didn't let me tell you what happened to me.
So yeah, you're right. I really appreciate these comments, because listening is of utmost importance. And when we talk about leadership, the concept of leading a movement and having a show like this, and when you lead people, you lead because of a concept. You've got some consensus. In other words, the people here in the green room and the people in the audience, there's a consensus of what they believe and how they feel. And when you grow from that, then you're leading a little bit of a movement. And in the basis of what we do here, I want to lead a movement of trust and truth. You may not always agree with me, but you're going to agree that I'm not trying to sell you something, and I'm saying from the heart what I feel and what I think. And I'm open to what you have to say, and that's why this comments system is so important to me. So the feedback and the interaction, it has to be two ways. And listening is a really big, huge part of what this show is all about. That's why I always ask questions. What kind of a mic are you using? And this and that and different things. And at the same time, it gives me a lot of feedback as to what the people might be able to value from what I have to say or what I have to bring. So all of that's spurned from me saying Brian Kramer and H2H. And I haven't even told you what he did. So that's how conversations get started, and that's how they evolve. But here's what he did. Brian Kramer asked the people what they struggled with most. Very simple question. He looks at his audience and says, what do you struggle with most? You know what their answer was? I'll give you a few seconds. And while we're doing that, do we want to display a comment, Bill?
I did. I think it's gone now. Hang on.
I know.
It was from Michael. It was from Michael Thomas, and he was basically saying it's all engagement marketing and attention, in my humble opinion. And I think he's just agreeing with basically everything we've been saying. And while we're here, I'd like to just acknowledge that Lori B has joined us again over on the YouTube comments. And thank you to Lori for joining us.
Thank you, Lori. You've been really a diligent viewer on Saturdays, and I appreciate the ones that do that. Lon McClure's out there. Appreciate you showing up every Saturday. And best of what's going on with you. And now we're going to wrap up this concept of what Brian Kramer said. And he asked people what they struggled with most. And they overwhelmingly said, selling myself. Now, that raised a bunch of thoughts to me. That his people, the people who listen to him, and that's going to be a wide, thousands of people, okay, are listening and watching Brian Kramer's broadcasts and his podcasts and his information flow every day. Thousands of people, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, but at least tens of thousands. He's a well-known marketer up in the San Francisco area, I believe, and he's got some huge contracts. So the guy knows what he's talking about. But he asked the people what they struggled with most, and they came back with selling myself. Now, the first thing that comes to mind is that this is the thing that people are thinking about. Maybe if my 80-20 rule prevails in this concept, 80% of the people are thinking to themselves, how do I sell myself on the internet? And what Steve Martin says in his local advertising or her global advertising for his thing that he calls the masterclass was so brilliant that he put this in the intro to the masterclass, because he says regarding the people, what their problems are, they get into the group and the first things that come out of their mouths are like, how do I find an agent? How do I find an agent? Well, they're actors and would-be people who want to get into the creative acting careers, and they're asking, how do I find an agent? How do I land an agent? And then another thing they said, where do I get my headshots? In other words, the picture that I put in front of meeting me is going to be so important if people want to meet me that I've got to make sure that that picture is the best that it can be. And so they're worrying about finding an agent, and they're worrying about their headshots. And what Steve Martin regurgitates back as a response to this is like, shouldn't the people be asking themselves, how do I be better? How do I be the best? How do I be a better actor or an actress before I get my headshot or before I seek an agent? That's like asking people, like people that come to me and ask me, I want you to build me a website and I want to get lots of traffic for this product and I want to sell a lot of this product. And I ask them, well, what's the product? How good is the product? Does it deserve to be on page 1 of Google? And so I get back around to, what is it you sell, or what is the service or product you sell, and how good is it? And in addition to that, how's your customer service? What are you going to do about it when you do sell somebody something? How do you follow up? How do you give a warranty or a guarantee? Or do you advise people and guide them into the use of your product? What do you do with your support? So that leads me on to some other things that we're going to talk about immediately. But I mean, the concept is selling yourself. Quit selling yourself and start being yourself. Selling yourself is fine if you have something to sell and that you're packaged up and you know exactly what you want to do to impact the world around you, and you have a product for sale. Okay, that's fine. But that you shouldn't have to sell yourself to sell your product. Your product should be wanted by everybody and should be easily attainable, and it's probably worth the price tag if people know who you are, understand your motives, understand your value, and you explain this to the people. And so it's not a matter of selling yourself. It's a matter of being yourself. And that's why I love Hangouts on Air. You can't fake who you are. I mean, you can, but it's only going to go so far. Eventually, the real you has to surface, and the real value of what you bring has to be delivered, and that's the real you. And that, indeed, is selling yourself without having to sell yourself. Just communicate with people and explain who you are and be yourself. So I was astounded that the statement even surfaced like that. I will go back and read the article and figure out how Brian Kramer followed up. But the question itself was amazing to me because it basically insinuates that 80% of the people watching this show perhaps are thinking with similar disconnect. In other words, it's like, how do I get my name out there? How do I sell myself? How do I produce something that people will watch? How do I, instead of who am I? Who am I and what do I want to say? What do I want to express? And we tag bases again with the concept of expressing yourself and being creative. First of all, you've got to decide who you are. And that is what you represent in all your outreach. You got to show people who you are. So I'm going to introduce to you next the concept of the person that I am. He's quickly becoming my hero. And I'm going to do a screen share and show you his website. His name is Ben Hunt. And forgive me, Ben, if I misrepresent you in any way, but I like you. And I'm going to say some things about you, comment about what you do in my perspective. And I hope it's very accurate because to me, you are a genius. Now, first of all, Ben wrote an article about Ryan Deiss or Ryan Deese. Does everybody know the name Ryan Deese? He's in marketing tremendously in my email box all the time. His last name is spelled Deiss. And the article about Ryan Deiss was basically to say what inevitably he's a huge scam artist online. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the total saying that he's a scam artist or that he does scammy things. I think that ultimately he does, but he has also delivered a lot of good information of what's going on. But the reason that Ben calls him a scam artist or infers that is that Ryan Deiss is making all his money off of people who follow him, but he doesn't really deliver exactly what he is purporting. And he uses a lot of the strategies and the tactics that I call black hat tactics or distrustful untruths. They get people to spend their money, but they don't get the product delivered to them that is promised in the actual presentation. And so Ben Hunt took issue with that and wrote a great article about about Ryan Dice and calling him names and stuff. And I mean, I thought, wow, that's really bold. So I read more about him, and I love this guy. I love Bent Hunt. And just on his front page, you can see what he's writing. He's been designing websites since 1994. And by the way, so have I. But in 2010, he created the Pro Web Design course, which is now free. And then in 2014, he started work on Ultimate Web Design. So he's gonna level it up. He's gonna ramp up, right? Ultimate Web Design, a radical marketing strategy system that combined the best insights from 20 years of research and practice. So basically, he's taking all of his career, bundling it up into a little book, and he's writing the Ultimate Web Design book. But then in 2015, look what happens. He's writing Web Design is Dead. Now, I get the impression that he never finished the 2014 book. So now he's writing a 2015 book on Web Design is Dead. And I'm in the midst of the article right now about this concept and the book, which has a PDF online. You can actually read this. And I'm going to go ahead and quit screen sharing. Ben Hunt's concept of web design is dead does not mean websites are dead. And that's what someone tried to tell me just a few years ago. It's like, websites are dead. People are going to do this and that instead of websites. And I didn't believe it for a second. It's just, Ben Hunt is right. The industry of designing websites has morphed and evolved. People can do it with Wix or this and that and cheaply, and WordPress design their own sites. People can do it themselves so easily that why do they need the web designer? Well, to a minor degree, they need the smarts of what web designers bring. And that's an understanding of the impact of what goes into the design of a website and what makes it more appealing and more useful in the process of conversion and teaching and doing those things. But do you need a web designer? Not so much. And so about 5 or 6 years ago, I switched from HTML web design, which quickly right afterwards became HTML5. But HTML web design, I switched to WordPress and became really well versed in WordPress. And that's what I share with people is you should be using WordPress. And okay, so half the world was never going to use WordPress no matter what I say. That's fine. But that still leaves about 3 billion people who might use WordPress. And indeed, about half of the internet websites are done in WordPress, either on WordPress.org or WordPress.com, one strategy or the other. But WordPress is very predominant. So inevitably, it leaves millions of people who are going to be receptive to any message that I have about WordPress or that's linked to that. I'm not saying they're going to like what I have to say, but the chances of it pertaining to what they do or what they need are pretty good. So if I'm developing a niche in the midst of that, then I have a great field of endeavor with which to play. And so the concept of VCP plugin and having events in your own website, well, that's a narrowed down niche, but it's still freaking huge. It's huge. And I feel like, well, that's as big a niche as I can handle. And right now it's very, very skinny. Why? Because hardly anybody's doing that themselves. Because why? Because live streaming is such a baby right now. And you say, no, it's not. It's been around for several years. Well, I've been doing it for 2 years. Some people have been doing it for 6 or 7, live streaming as a concept on the internet. But the wave is about to hit now. And even Tim Rubin declared in one of his articles in January the trend that is going to make the most difference, the most influential trend in 2017 is the concept of live streaming, because it allows the audience to connect and be a part of the live conversation. Now, there aren't a lot of places you can do that. Facebook Live comes close, but it does not, fluently connect with the people. And other concepts come close, but they disconnect from YouTube, or they're not as global. Their outreach is not the perfect. And the one thing that the VCP plugin does is it takes all this potential interaction, does it really, really well, and puts it in the middle of your WordPress website. Now, right now, I don't know who else or what else can make that claim or that declaration. So I think that we're experimenting on the edge of a way that is going to expand into something significant in the coming years. And that's why we're doing this. So Ben Hunt is my hero, not just because he trounced on Ryan Dice, but because he mentioned some stuff and brought some stuff to the table and was very, very succinct in his assessment. And I have to agree 100% with what he says. And I agree with him totally. Web design is dead. Websites are not. And the concept of what we use them for and how we go about it has changed. And the market has changed. Everything's mobile now. Mobile first, but not only. So web design is not dead. It has just morphed into something more usable by the masses. So that's my introduction to my new hero on the internet. And other than that, we're going to go to what the subject was supposed to be. And the hour is gone again. We haven't even gotten to the subject. Why do I do this all the time? That's because maybe I should change the focus of what my show is all about. But if Lon McClure is still watching, he asked a question at the end of the last show. By the way, does anybody have anything that they want to get off their chest after Roland ranted and raved for about 20 minutes? Okay, you had your chance. No, we're just having fun here, and this is therapy to me, because I can't go on someone else's show and just rave about whatever it is that I want to rave about. But it's as good a reason as any for you out there to have your own show and for you to develop something for your live streaming concept so you can express and be creative the way that you want to be. So now to bring a little value to the show other than Roland's opinion on things, Lon asked a question about microphones and miking an event where he was in a very echoey hall, public place, with a panel for board members of the company and various people who would interchange on the microphone, plus people speaking in the audience in the circle of attendance who also were permitted to say something and to speak also. So the concept that I came up with for him was all these concepts of microphones are good, but what he needs is a shotgun microphone. Now, a shotgun microphone usually is a supercardioid or a hypercardioid pattern. Cardioid is good, but it does not have the reach of a supercardioid or hypercardioid, and it does not have the sound deflection. It is not so much that it magnifies the sound coming from a point, but it isolates the point of sound reception, narrows it down so there's not as much conflicting sound waves coming in. So if you're in an echoey room, when you use a shotgun mic, you have the ability to point the mic at somebody and hear them better than other people in the room because the side sounds are deflected. Also, you've got hypercardioid and supercardioid, which are totally different. And the effect is that a hypercardioid is going to be good if you're interviewing somebody, point the mic at them, and you have a spot right in front of the mic that catches the person listening. And then you have the spot right behind the mic, which is also pretty good at a ratio of about 60 and 40%. So if you're interviewing someone and want to use a hypercardioid mic, you can point them at them, and then you can speak also, and they're going to hear you almost as well as the person that you're pointing the mic at. And so if you're interviewing somebody, that might be a good idea. But if you're only going to catch a speaker in the room from one position, you want the supercardioid mic, which still has a little bit of feedback or pickup ability from the rear of the microphone, but far less. And most of it is more like 30-70 or 20-80, with the 70 and the 80 pointed at the person that you're pointing it at. And they really have good side rejection, and you're going to catch the one person that's speaking. So even though when you use it in a big room, the person far away is going to be heard the least, it'll have good isolation of sound where you catch more of the one person, even though the volume is going to be significantly less. If you want to catch them, the supercardioid mic is going to help you best. And then there are various ways that you can do better than that. There are things that are called, what are they called? Well, they call them spy mics. Parabolic cardioid mics or shotgun mics. And the parabolic mics usually have this fan on it. It looks like a radar screen. And that kind of goes with the microphone pointed at a person. And all of this does is it focuses the frequency on a central receiving point, and then it seems like it magnifies it. And if they have a power source, battery powered or electrically powered, the signal that they reproduce can be amplified, and then that's a different story. That's a completely different animal, and we won't get into that because it really has very little to do with broadcasting. But I mean, you know, so you're going to listen to this broadcast and say, no, there's such a thing as a parabolic mic, and they do amplify sound. Yes, they do, but in a totally different way. And for miking someone at a group setting where you have several speakers, you want to isolate the person speaking, shotgun mic, supercardioid. Okay, enough of that. The other thing that we missed on last week was we really did not talk about iPhones or lapel mics. And when you talk about iPhone recording is getting really, really popular for podcasting and for live streaming, and for video casting. The phone is becoming really predominant. But you know how bad a microphone is on an iPhone? They are really bad. Oh, by the way, Bill, did I miss a comment coming from the field? Lon McClure, sound like the Hyper would be best for our situation. Okay, with the description that I gave, if hypercardioid is best, then that's the target. And thank you for your feedback on that. You can explain to me how well that works if you take on that challenge. It's going to be $100 purchase minimum, and supercardioids or hypercardioids can be very expensive, but you can get in the ballpark for starting about $100. But anyway, that's that. Thank you very much, Lon. Now for lapel mics, one of the things about lapel mics is they're this big. The microphone itself is this big. So the first thing is, like, how good a sound could possibly be captured by a microphone that's this big? Well, actually, the answer is pretty damn good, because it's a technical thing where they're dealing with sound frequencies and receptive ranges, which is mostly determined by technological advances, not the sound of that's being captured by the diaphragm and stuff. That is a major factor, the diaphragm size. But in the small mic, they still have technology that is capable of reproducing pretty good vocal quality. Is it going to be as a category as good as a regular mic? No. But it serves its purpose if you want to use things for a lapel mic where the person's going to be walking or needs to be hands-free. Maybe they talk with their hand, and if they're holding a mic, they're not going to hold the mic steady. then the lapel mic makes sense for it. But the trade-off is there is going to be less control of the actual reproduced sound. So you have to consider that. But it's a convenience item. So if you want a lapel mic, the benefits are you don't have the hand noise of handling the microphone, and it's going to be capturing everything steadily from one place. So a lapel mic, depending upon the use, makes a lot of sense. And it's reasonably easy, and it usually has a battery pack with a battery in it that takes the place of what other mics for USB need, and that is a voltage charge, either coming from the USB port or a side power supply. So they always have, if it doesn't have a battery and it doesn't have a power supply, it's not a condenser mic, first of all, and it's probably not a worthwhile lapel mic. That being said, they do make dynamic lapel mics, but they're usually more expensive, and they're for specialty purposes, and I would do a lot of research before you buy a dynamic lapel mic. So what you're going to get is 90% of the time, or 99% of the time, is a condenser lapel mic, and make sure that you're using it for the right reasons. And they work really well if you're doing an iPod recording or an iPhone recording. However, that being said, almost any mic with the right plug-in adapter will work with an iPhone or an iPad. So a dynamic mic works just as well. You'll have to hold it probably, or however you have it implemented, either on the tabletop, or if you're doing a selfie with it, you have the mic plugged in and the mic's out of sight, but it's still right there. You'll be able to make a pretty decent recording with almost any kind of mic. Almost any kind of mic if you have the right adapters and the power supplies to go along with it. So just because you have an iPhone, don't think that you have to go out and buy a special mic. If you adapt it properly, you can use almost anything. And then it boils down to the use of the mic and what kind of an effect you want. Whether you want the side noise or whether you want to eliminate side noise determines which kind of mic you get. So, but the reason that we didn't cover all this is most people aren't running a Hangout on Air series from their iPhone. Indeed, you can't even launch a YouTube Live Hangout on Air from an iPhone. So you're going to need something, a tablet or a laptop or something more than a phone to run Hangouts. And that's that. So that covers some of what we did last week. If anyone has a special situation regarding their use of a mic or their need for a mic, please submit it in the comments or contact me directly and we'll deal with your issues. And that covers mostly of what we wanted to talk about. What people are going to run into is how to mix their sound and stuff. We're not going to get into it heavily, but there's a lot going on with that. A thing called a DAW, you're going to run into that. That's called a digital audio workstation. And as an alternative to that, what I use is an analog audio workstation or an analog mixer. And I've shown it to you before. It was in the presentation I did last week. And that gives me hands-on dials to play with. And the benefit for that is that I can plug everything into my computer via one USB. I've got my camera, my microphone, my headsets, all my listening devices, my phone source for music. Everything's feeding into one USB. And the one drawback is that the USB connection can only hold or handle so much. So if I'm playing music, it's not gonna really like the fact that I'm trying to speak at the same time. And the feed into the computer and the reception is going to be lacking. So I have to balance it. So like I taper off the music and then I start talking and this sort of thing. So although it has lots of benefits, everything has its limits too. So I think that's mostly what I wanted to bring up. The other concept that Tim was touching on last week was soundproofing your room. To wrap it up in a nutshell, don't do a lot of soundproofing in your room. If you have a really echoey room, your recording is going to be echoey. But you can limit how much echo there is by positioning yourself properly in the room and choosing your mic wisely. You very well might want to use a shotgun supercardioid mic right in front of you instead of a ball mic like what we have here, or a condenser mic. You might want the shotgun mic, and you might want different forms of soundproofing, either an isolation booth or an isolation screen or something, especially if you're doing podcasts. But if you want to do video casting, if you want to do Hangouts on air, your best bet is to buy a microphone that limits the side noise and just is covered with a screen or a round filter, and then just videotape away. Because this way you can use your hands, be on the video screen, and get pretty decent sound. And I'm sure that it could be controlled enough that not to keep you from doing the production in the first place. And that's the key. So that's the end of Roland's rants for today about the microphones and various things. And I hope we helped some people. I hope we introduced you to a couple of connections that you'll appreciate with Ben Hunt and Ryan Dice and Brian Kramer. We've mentioned some really big wigs in the industry, and they're worth following. So that's about the end of the show today. Is there anything else that anyone would like to say before we wrap things up? By the way, this is the shortest I've kept the show in months. Well, thank you for joining. Yeah, that's the message. And we're going to say bye from Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties. Everyone have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye, guys.